Thank you for joining us this lunchtime and supporting Silicon Brighton. I'm Steve Rackley. I'm one of the co-founders. Now, someone said to me something the other day, and it's a terrible thing to leave Q&A until the end, but then I feel that things can be a little bit disjointed if we don't. So I'm going to keep my eye on the questions as we go through. And if there's something really relevant that is timely to bring in, I will. Otherwise, we'll be answering these after each speaker today. We're also recording today's session. In my slide deck, we have a fair few QR codes, and I've also included some more detailed slides that you'll need to watch back to review, but I will email all assets to all attendees after the event. Now, this is our second online event. Our first was last month, and goodness me, has that time gone so quickly. I have made a public thanks since then, but whilst I have you all here, thank you again to our 42 speakers and over 700 viewers on the day. Over the 10-hour period we streamed, over 600 hours of content was viewed, and together you raised over £3,000 for our NHS. I also heard last week from Brighton and Sussex University hospitals that the funds you raised have been allocated to enhance care in their general purpose department. Now, this directly feeds through to frontline staff, and that's doctors, nurses, and healthcare assistants. So thank you all again for that monumental effort during such a difficult time. Now, before we discuss 5G, I want to thank those that have made today possible. Firstly, we have Digital Catapult. You are going to hear a lot about them today. They're an absolute game-changing UK-wide initiative accelerating early adoption of advanced digital technologies, and they have provided us today with their two top 5G experts. Next, we have FuseBox and Wired Sussex. Now, they've been supporting the digital media and technology sector across Sussex for years now. I'm very pleased to say that today we have Phil Jones, MD of Wired Sussex, joining us, and he's going to talk through with us all how we can engage with them further. And you know what? I can definitely shout out my team at James Chase. Trust me, this is not the best time to work in recruitment, but they are so incredibly resilient and believe, as I do, in Brighton's potential to be a world player on the tech scene. And they've volunteered all of their time to organise a lot of today. And finally, PlusX. Now, we've all been watching with bated breath as this innovation hub has been built. And 3 weeks ago, on June the 8th, it opened its doors. Sam Harland, who works for PlusX, introduced us to Digital Catapult. Today would not have happened without her. We are broadcasting live from their launch event space, and I must say, this place will take your breath away. It's a 7-story hub housing office space, resident desks, prototyping workshops, media suites, event and meeting space, and they've even got an amazing rooftop garden. It's also the first building in the Southeast to be rated Platinum Standard by WELL. That's the first accreditation of its kind, focusing purely on the health and wellness of its occupants. So it's basically the healthiest building in the country to work in. Now, if you're fed up of working from home, then get a desk here. If your employer is not opening the office anytime soon, or rightly so, you don't fancy the commute to London, and you need some creative headspace perhaps, get a desk here. Perhaps there's a few of you that work and commute together. Talk to your employer about hiring an office here. It doesn't cost a lot and is nothing compared to London space. Trust me, you'll be getting some brownie points from the boss for that idea. The fact of the matter is, space in Brighton has never been plentiful, and there has never been anything like this. They even do monthly rolling contracts, and on top of that, soon they'll be announcing their Innovation Business Support Programme for Sussex businesses. I'll share details afterwards, and definitely follow them on social media. They're at PlusX Space. Okay, now let's do 5G. There has been a lot of hype around this 5th generation technology for mobile networks. And to be fair, it's easy to see why. The future is autonomous vehicles. The future is VR for live immersive experiences. The future is a place where doctors will remotely use robots from thousands of miles away to perform procedures. But there's a blocker, and it's a big one, and that's connectivity, latency, network data capacity, bandwidth. Current networks are not sufficient to enable these digital advancements to be fully realized. 5G could very well be the disruptive tech that will enable our future to be so different. I'm now going to pass you across to our first speaker to begin today, taking us on our 5G journey. Claire Caminade is Digital Catapult's commercial product lead for 5G. She is a product management expert who has worked for large corporations and startups across Europe and Latin America, focusing on new technologies and more precisely mobile telecommunications. Claire today will be explaining more about what is Digital Catapult and also providing us with an overview of 5G.
Hi everyone, thank you very much for the intro. So as Steve was saying, I'm the 5G product lead at Digital Catapult. That's where I co-lead the 5G program with my technical counterpart, Dritan Kaleshi, whom you will hear of later. So without further ado, let's kickstart that presentation. I will talk you through what is Digital Catapult, and then we can have a bit of Q&A session. So what is 5G? And the first question is, why is it so special? So I think we just need to go back to the story of the mobile telecommunication and remember, I put only 2G, but it started with 1G, obviously. But with 2G, we had a journey from 2G to 4G, which was quite linear. It was always about that handheld device, and that was used by consumer. It started with voice, then with 3G we added data, and with 4G we switched this network to an all IP network, but allowing for faster data. So it was quite a unique story, and it's a consumer story. 5G is the first mobile communication technology that has been specifically designed for the industrial sectors. So we have a strong disruption here. For the first time, the standards have defined a network that can be used by business end users. And obviously, as business end users, the use cases are absolutely tremendous, and 5G has the ambition to be able to answer any type of use cases brought by business end users, from critical communication to IoT sensors to or video analytics, all type of use cases. I'll enter that a bit later, but that's where the revolution starts, is that 5G is aimed to answer any kind of communication on this planet. So we are now talking not only of connecting human beings, but we are also connecting machines. So these are some key features of 5G, and in my next slide, the following slide, I will show them in a different way, but this is the same idea. There are many other features. It's such a complex technology and so ambitious, and we have only 15 minutes, and I don't want to overwhelm you, but there are three big pillars that you will hear a lot. One is more data. So that's the first pillar of 5G. It's basically more speed, more bandwidth. That's the journey from 3G to 4G and keeping on to 5G. So that's journey of the bandwidth that we're already very familiar with. And this is what you are experiencing now when you buy a 5G phone, let's say with a mobile operator, you will experience that really extreme or way larger bandwidth. The second pillar, which is a bit more innovative, is the more devices. So 5G has been designed to be able to support all types of devices, as I said, including machine-to-machine devices or sensors. But also, obviously, if there is a greater number of devices supported, you could expect a greater number of connections. And 5G, again, is able to support an extremely high number of simultaneous connections without dropping. And the last one, which is the most futuristic pillar, is the instant response, so otherwise called low latency. It's the ability to have a feedback loop, or a loop that is below the 5 millisecond. At that stage, industry would reckon that it's close to real time, or it's even considered as real time. That allows a whole new sort of area of use cases, including obviously real-time critical communications. So this is another way of presenting it, with the triangle. And the reason I put it here is because you will see that triangle when you speak 5G a lot of the time, and those acronyms EMBB, MMTC, URLLC, they are the typical 5G acronyms. Worth remembering if you have to remember a few acronyms and a few jargon. So the EMBB stands for Enhanced Mobile Broadband. That's what I said in my previous slide. It's the more data aspect. The MMTC stands for Massive Machine Type Communications. That's this ability to support million devices on a limited area and connection, simultaneous connection. And the last corner is URLLC, which stands for ultra reliability and low latency communication. So that's low latency, that's what I was talking, the real time. And the ultra reliability, it's also a target to have extremely low level of loss of packets when you communicate, which again, for critical communication is absolutely crucial. And so when you look at that triangle, you start to see a bit of use cases that have been mapped with the different use case, with the different ability and those different technical features. So let's look at, for instance, the self-driving car. Obviously, you need that low latency, you need that reliability. You don't want your car to lose connection in the middle of operation. So that stands definitely firmly in that URLLC corner, as you can see. The reason there's this mapping is that those features are not available simultaneously. There's always a trade-off. You can't have both a high energy efficiency of the massive machine type communication and using a URLLC and millimeter waves that will drain your battery. So this is why, this is always a trade-off, and this is how why those use cases are mapped out. So in other words, this is what we can see with 5G. It's 1,000 times higher data volumes compared to 4G. It's a higher number of connected devices. It's always compared to 4G, and it's a lower latency, and it's a longer battery life. This is something I haven't mentioned, but in the standard, there's a requirement that battery life goes up to 10 years without a charge. So if you are putting a sensor somewhere, that's quite exceptional to be able to put a sensor and not think about having to put a battery or to put power to enable that sensor. Okay, I just wanted to show you two use cases about two examples of use cases with 5G. One is an experiment that Audi has done in Germany with Ericsson, and to empower robots with 5G and see how the impact could be and the benefit could be for an Audi production line, basically using robots. The other one is 5G for tourism, a completely different aspect. This is a project where we, Digital Catapult, have been involved, and where we demonstrated 5 different use cases of 5G for tourism. And I had a little video about the use case developed by the BBC and with the Roman bath, and where we were using immersive technologies inside the Roman bath to have a much more interactive and really richer experience for the visitor. If we can show maybe the BBC video.
here at the Roman Baths. We've been working with the BBC, Ardman, University of Bristol, so many different project partners on the 5G Smart Tourism project. It's been a really exciting project for us.
So yeah, we're here today to test out the Roman Baths 5G application that we've made that kind of gives you a window back in time. This uses a 3D model that's been exported to 360 video. This then allows us to align that 360 video to the physical environment here at the Roman Baths and then give you this window back into how the Roman Baths would have looked at different points in time.
But we think the concept of providing a window back in time that relies on a really high bandwidth video or excellent quality animations could have applications in education and entertainment for all kinds of historical places, possibly complementing BBC programmes or providing information and guidance in museums and other kinds of locations like that.
We came upon the idea of looking at these 3 different points in time: the Celtic period, when the Roman Baths thermal spring was first discovered, then into the Roman period when the baths started to fall into disrepair and the roof collapsed, and then into the Victorian period when this upper terrace that we're now stood on was built. So this is an Android application that uses AR Core to perform the image alignment. So this aligns the 360 video to the physical environment. And then we then go into a 360 video player which streams from a remote server at the University of Bristol the 360 video, which is then displayed to the user. And then on top of this 360 video, there is some informational hotspots.
We've been working in collaboration with the BBC R&D team up in Salford and the Roman Baths. So we've been able to really get to grips with history and bring it to life. Looking back through the Roman era, where there was the fall of the roof. So through the app, you can actually see the roof fall down and cave down in front of you, which is really exciting when you get to see people actually react in front of you. It's lovely. And through to the kind of Victorian era as well, which is very much how it looks today. So looking at all the kind of key characters through history and telling a story through the augmented reality.
The network comprises of a number of different elements. We've got a high-speed link back to Bristol where we host some cloud computer and some logic there. And then we've got a mixture of Wi-Fi and LTE providing the users with the connectivity to the handsets.
For BBC R&D, this has been an excellent opportunity to look at how we could use really high bandwidth future networks for delivering new kinds of experiences to people. So here we've been looking at sort of virtual or augmented reality relying on high bitrate video. We're going to go on to look at how we could render video remotely to deliver streams to users without needing to rely on massive bandwidth, but we'd have to use really low latency, which will be another good test of the 5G network. So it's all giving us a lot of insight into what future technology might allow us to use to deliver new kinds of experiences for BBC audiences.
The benefits of factory automation with 5G is the gain of flexibility and mobility of the production equipment, such as robots adapted on HEVs. URLC is the basic for guaranteed data transmission and therefore the first requirement for personnel safety applications.
5G URLC stands for 5G ultra-reliable low-latency communication. So the signal will never use more than 3 milliseconds, for instance. And that is actually the communication characteristics that are needed for certain applications, and Profinet is one of those.
Our goal with this URLC project was to showcase that we can run our regular automation in the factory with the wireless communication. And we needed determinism, which up to now Wi-Fi standards cannot provide.
But we are showing an example here that to transport safety protocols, the underlying mechanisms need to be very stable and reliable. And that is what 5G URLC brings. The demo shows a robot cell that is connected via 5G. And then we have a laser curtain that protects one side of the cell so that if someone reaches into the robot cell, and the robot stops so that no one can get hurt. And the laser curtain uses ProfiSelf as a protocol to secure functional safety of an application.
In factory automation, having to synchronize all the machines, the robot equipment together with the PLCs, we need deterministic low latency communication. And up to now, this was only doable through wired networks. But if we want to be more flexible in the future, we need to omit those cables and we need to come to a wireless communication. This is something that in the end will then benefit the entire world that is working in production, because they will be able to use a 5G network to drive their operations.
Yeah, these were just two examples of use cases. They are literally, the sky is the limit, and there are many, many areas of application, and we Digital Catapult are involved in many projects. Let me just quickly introduce who we are, and then Dritan can deep dive a bit more in depth about what we do in Brighton precisely. So as Steve was saying, we're here to accelerate the early adoption of advanced digital technologies in the UK. We are focused on two sectors, one the creative industries and the other one the manufacturing industries. And we support, in digital technologies, we support future network technology, including 5G, immersive technology, so that's augmented reality, virtual reality, mixed reality, all those realities. We also support artificial intelligence, and more specifically machine learning, and distributed systems, blockchain technologies. We also have a very special place, being a government-backed organization and not for profit. We are the heart of this whole ecosystem of innovation, from universities to government to investors, and also obviously the startups and the large corporate end users. This is, so we've been extremely active actually in 5G, and not only this year, but we started the whole journey in 2014 when 5G was probably just an idea. And we've kept on developing a lot of projects. I'm not going to enter the details here. You'll have the slide deck after. But we are really now focusing on making 5G a reality, and heavily involved in testing, trialing, prototyping new services and new products. And the way we approach that is through a phased approach, and our concept is to accompany all those innovators and all those end users on their 5G journey, from the very early stages where we call them the 5G curious. They've heard about the techno, but they don't know anything, would like to understand, to then starting to once they understand the techno, start to have a better strategy and roadmap about their product, and then going into what we call 5G testers. So these are the people who want to, once they understood, they have an idea of what it could do, then for their business, then want to really trial. And we have a whole set of offers and activities towards this segment to answer the needs of the 5G travelers along according to the level of maturity in this journey. I think that's it for me. I'll let Dritan speak more into detail about one specific activity we're doing in Brighton that fits into this journey. Thank you very much.
Next up, we have Dritan Kaleshi. He is Head of Technology for 5G at Digital Catapult. He established and now he leads their 5G program. He's a thought leader in his field. He's written over 70 papers and is often invited to speak on advanced digital infrastructure. Prior to Digital Catapult in academia, Dritan led a 15-strong research team combining research with commercial collaboration. And he's made contributions to networking, smart energy, and digital health. His focus is now on national 5G coordination, and best of all, how to support startup and scale up innovation and technical advances in 5G infrastructure. Dritan today will be talking us through the work him and his team complete in Brighton, and also providing the technologist watching with a few takeaways so you can explore the technical side of 5G further.
So thank you very much, Steve, and queuing in. It's always a pleasure to speak in Brighton. It is the first time we are doing it virtually. We have a very deep embedding and a strategic partnership in Brighton, in particular through our primary point of contact, via Sussex, and in particular the champion for us in Brighton, which is Phil Jones, who has done an amazing job in promoting and engaging with the digital ecosystem in Brighton. As you can see, that is the ecosystem and the partners that we currently have in Brighton. The activities that we have in Brighton are funded through the Coast to Capital local enterprise partnership. And as I said, we have strategic partnership with Digital Innovation Company, which is Wired Sussex, as well as the Brighton Dome and Brighton Festival organization. So in this slide, we are effectively showing the concept behind 5G and the engagement for 5G. As Claire pointed out, in general, communication infrastructure and infrastructure as a whole, it is something that is very invisible to people. However, like all of the other areas of our life, there is very, very deep innovation, in particular in mobile technologies. We see a very, very deep cycle of innovation reinventing itself almost every 10 years, which is each individual generation of mobile technology. The technology, the infrastructure has become much, much better in a very deep way. But for most of the people, that is invisible. The problem that we have now, which we are trying to address as Digital Catapult nationally, is that we want to make that invisible infrastructure more visible. It is a very, very flexible infrastructure, and it will allow people that use the infrastructure today in a very large way blindly, effectively getting an IP connectivity, giving them a very, very much better control on that IP connectivity, more flexible to match the particular needs of their digital enterprise and digital business. So in a way, Digital Catapult brings together places with people and with innovation together with the necessary technology. And the reason why we do that is that when you are looking, as I said before, on this invisible infrastructure deployment, you look at a kind of a tiered supply chain for delivering the digital services that we typically see as end consumers, and for a large part also as developers of new digital services. So very, very often we will not see the first three layers going from the left to the right of the infrastructure because there is very, very little direct way of interacting with those layers. The reason why 5G is transformational is precisely because it is exposing the flexibility of the infrastructure to people, and in particular it is emphasizing that point where the supply and the demand, the flexibility of that is shifting for people that want to deliver new digital products and digital services. If we look, what we have tried to show in this slide is pretty much in a bit of more technical detail, the layering that you would normally see. This is a bit of a take for people that deal with digital enterprise architectures. It's very, very similar to enterprise architectures, with the additional fact that we have added the communication layer there, including infrastructure, transmission, and distribution. And we deliberately have shown that 5G is the first generation of the mobile technology, that it is effectively crossing the boundary from being a simple pipe of connectivity into embedding with it, converging and integrating computation and storage, as Claire mentioned it before. So that is why that blue line effectively moves up to the data provision layer, where a lot of the innovation space is. And the role for Digital Catapult is effectively how we can bring together people in that particular area, that particular space, where 5G is expanding towards the digital enterprise, in order to allow people to explore, understand, and exploit this particular technology going forward. So in order to do this, you need many, many different elements, but fundamentally, you need the ability to have an infrastructure offering that it is as a facility, it is open, accessible, and technically supported, in order to allow people that are not familiar with the technology to be able to explore it in a safe and technically supported way. You need also the innovation ecosystem, which is where partnering with Wired Sussex and more broadly in the Brighton region and elsewhere nationally for Digital Catapult effectively comes in. So the first step that we have done through Brighton is to effectively build the 5G Brighton Testbed. The 5G Brighton Testbed, for the technically minded, is a three-sided infrastructure facility run as a private mobile network. It is geographically distributed. We have 3 nodes there. One which covers the Brighton Dome and Brighton Festival, about 1,200 square meters. One that covers FuseBox, all indoor, which is about 650 square meters. And then we also have a third node in our facilities in London, just opposite the British Library in King's Cross. It is technologically complete end-to-end platform. So it is not a desktop computer running some radio interface. This is a full technical facility running as a private network, providing you with full cellular data services. It is open access, and deliberately so, because we have a mixture of commercial and open source components there, precisely not to enter into a vendor lock-in ecosystem and the challenges that arise out of that. And more importantly, Digital Catapult supports it with expertise in running the facility, operating it, but also helping people to integrate their solutions and to make use of the facility, literally hand-holding people to how they can effectively engage with the 5G infrastructure. It is a very new infrastructure. It is just started to roll in May 2019 across the UK, and not many places in the country have it. Just going a bit more in depth. This is a slide that shows the 3 geographical locations. It is particularly important. So when you are looking at a mobile, at a private mobile network, typically you have 3 main components. You have the radio elements of that, so the access points, the base stations, both indoor, small cell, that they look very much like the Wi-Fi box, or outdoor, the big base stations that we see all over the country. Connected to that, you have the backhaul connectivity that effectively connects all of the base stations around the country, and at the moment there are about 42,000 base stations, outdoor, macro cells in the UK, and all of them are connected to what we can call the Network Operations Center, NOC, or the brain of the network, which carries the core network. That core network is the software that manages those radio endpoints and manages the way that we can effectively move from one base station to another without the classical interruption of connectivity that we see when we move between 2 Wi-Fi nodes, between your home and the end of the garden now, or between 2 endpoints in the office. That particular software stack is where most of the changes are happening in 5G, and that is what this particular diagram shows. But more importantly, it is having a particular triplicate of the functionality that allows us to effectively run the Brighton nodes from London, or the London-based radio head points, or the Brighton Dome and Brighton Festival head points from our Brighton Digital Exchange location. So if we go a bit more detail into the next slide, this shows a classical software stack. So at the bottom, you'll have the typical hardware infrastructure. So the switches, the cabling, the internet connections between the different sites, and the radio endpoints that effectively provide these facilities. So I have a slide after this that lists all of the hardware that we are currently using. Above this, we are using a virtualized platform using OpenStack and Docker. And on the other side, we are using SDN switches. 10 of our switches are all SDN in order to support network slicing and network orchestration. And above this virtualized infrastructure sits the software, either the 4G core network, which is the Evolved Packet Core, the EPC that you see on the left side of the network, and as well as the 5G core, which is the Release 15 and the Release 16, as well as moving on to the firewall, to the other classical software components of a network periphery. And at the top, we have the open source management and network orchestration software, the OSM, Kubernetes, and the M-Core, as well as the experimenter software that will sit and support the software mobile edge computing application. So in the next slide, we effectively see the Digital Catapult testbed. This is a real thing. It is not a desktop computer or 3 desktop computers with some wires between them. It is effectively commercial grade equipment and software as well as open source. So that gives you a full list of our setting. We have access to Spectrum for non-operational indoor service across all of the 3 nodes, including 5G spectrum, 3.4 to 3.6 gig. We cover the locations, as I mentioned before, and we also have connectivity and computing hardware where you can see the list there. So we have, of course, we have LTE, 4G access radios, as well as 5G NR radios across the 3 locations, Wi-Fi, as well as 14 switches. More importantly, we have a very significant compute power that we can use for mobile edge compute. You can see the bottom part of that rack is about 10 Dell servers with the characterization that I've given there, with about 1,400 compute core that we can use for mobile edge compute, as I will say in a while. The next slide is purely to make it visible that we are not, again, talking of a single room. We are covering more than 2,000 square meters, and this is the installation in the founder's room space in Brighton Dome. And on the left-hand side, you see the rack of the equipment that is in the IT service room there. And on the two pictures on the right side of the slide, you effectively see the installation of what is at the moment the 5G NR, as well as the 5G NR, as well as the other components. It is quite important that whilst we carry the complexity of this particular infrastructure, and we act as almost a tech pre-sale and a tech support to this infrastructure, it is very important with the Brighton Dome, connecting it to particular venues and to particular use cases in the way that Claire described is very, very important. So we have a strategic partnership with Brighton Dome and Brighton Festival, that where we are currently deploying the 5G testbed in the Brighton Dome area. And then as soon as the Corniche change, the flagship renovation of that particular area will finish, we will have a fully functional 5G testbed operating in that space indoor using the same equipment. Without a shadow of a doubt, and I know that I'm speaking publicly, this is one of the best facilities outside of mobile network operators in the country. And that is happening in Brighton, and it is credit to the Cost to Capital Lab and to our regional partners, as well as Digital Catapult, of course, but our regional partners, in particular, Wired Sussex and the Digital Catapult Center in Brighton that was set up in 2015 to effectively create this facility and create literally a leadership in this space in the country. So the next slide covers the people that we are currently working closely with, which are all very, very known entities for everybody and very loved entities in Brighton. So at the top, and with huge thanks, is Cost to Capital, which has invested originally 1.2 million in the building of this facility, with an additional 600 million pounds coming from Digital Catapult on top of that facility. And that project finished in March 2020. We are continuing to support and maintain this facility in Brighton because we see a very significant impact in Brighton, but also because we see that further impact will come forward as in the next few years. As you can see, it's literally textual so that you can refer to the slides later on, but we are particularly honored and proud to effectively have the strategic partnership with Brighton Dome and Brighton Festival in their particular positioning and the services that they are offering in the Brighton area and region, as well as Wired Sussex. And I'll leave it for Phil, but just to say from us that it is great to work with organizations like Wired Sussex in order to take forward the visions and the ideas that we jointly have in this particular space. And the next slide shows some pictures when the FuseBox testbed was launched in 2018. That is 6 months. Well, it is 8 months before May 2019, which was the first commercial rollout of 5G in the country. So we were way ahead of that. I have a few more slides that I want to cover. We are doing all of this with a very, very strong technical background and with a strong technical interest. But that is purely for geeks and people that will work in that space. And we can provide all of the geekiness that is needed in Brighton. And we are actually finding that it is a very well-received space for geekiness. It's a lovely place to be. But there is a bigger reason around that. As I said, making the infrastructure, making the invisible visible means how do you open flexible infrastructure to people so that they can effectively use it. So the next slide, I want to talk about the 5G Testbed Accelerator program that Digital Catapult has in place. And if you move immediately to the next slide that shows all of the partners. So here, there is a particular statement from Paul Boyarsky, Cynic, which is one of our second cohort of companies. There are people that speak about 5G, including myself, but there are also people that do things with 5G. And the Brighton 5G Testbeds has positioned us in Brighton as well as nationally. But I don't think that there is a much better place to do it than in Brighton to effectively do things with 5G rather than just talk about it. These are 15 companies that have gone and have directly benefited through the engagement with Digital Catapult and in using the testbed. So the next slide says what the Testbed Accelerator. It is a 20-week engagement program in which companies join for free. They are supported for free, and they get access to the expertise of the Digital Catapult on developing and integrating their products and their solutions, or modifying them to take advantage of 5G. If we move to the next slide, we have had, out of the 15 companies that I showed before, we have had all sorts of companies that are leveraging artificial intelligence, companies that are effectively playing in the immersive technology space, and companies that are embedded in the way that infrastructure is operated, including orchestration and network management, like Ori. So why do companies, next slide please, Martin, why are companies interested in this? They are interested on improving their experience. They are interested on exploring new business models, and they get the same as any other accelerator in the country. They get a full business support as startups and scale-ups. But in addition to this, they have something that we call technically underpinned innovation, literally working very, very closely with a very strong experts team in 5G to effectively align their particular product vision and idea and roadmap with the roadmap of the 5G technology, so that they can benefit as part of their product and service development for themselves. And they can validate the performance, and also they can explore edge compute application. So to give you a very, very quick example, and this is the last slide, of several companies that have existed here. So Synapse is a company based in Brighton. It's a startup in Brighton. It uses an AI algorithm to enhance users' photos. So think of an Instagram on steroids, literally. It's a fantastic and it's an amazing company. And what they wanted to do was to test the deployment of their application in the network and to effectively bring that to see how they can effectively improve that. They did some specific tests, and the performance of their application got improved by about 10 times purely by using 5G technology and moving their computation closer to the edge. Cynic is a 2.5-year-old company that it is a watch together, in particular in COVID times. It is an application that effectively uses a synchronized streaming of content, sports, BT Sports, as well as a streaming of a group of people that are in different locations so that they can watch the action together. So think of a combined Skype and BT Sports in one place. As you saw before, what they said is, they said that Cynic, by participating in the program, Cynic moved to effectively a contract with both BT Sports and with a Middle East client, purely on the back of participating and testing and demonstrating their technology in the 5G testbed. I mean, the fact that they had an amazing product also helped them quite significantly, but also having the ability to point to testing, figures of testing in the testbed is particularly significant. And the last one from me is Make Real, which is a company that many of you probably know. They make immersive digital products, and what they wanted to do is that they wanted to deploy an immersive performance to a range of 5G-enabled devices to explore how high bandwidth, coupled with some more devices, could enable their prototype to get a theater scale audience distribution, which is very, very hard to do with a non-5G technology, probably impossible. So their prototype proved deploying over 5G enables more devices to be utilized at scale, and they graduated as it was in May this year. I will stop here because I think we are very close to running over time, and in particular to open the time for more interesting things, which will be the questions. But this was a very whirlwind presentation. If we can go to the next slide, there is an email on the slide with thanks to the organizers, to Steve and to Martin, for the time. We are very, very happy to volunteer and to contribute our time to this. It's very significant. Please get in touch with the email address that is there, 5gtestbed@digicatapult.org.uk. Thank you, Steve.
Phil, if you're happy, I'm going to come to you now. Phil Jones, for over 12 years, Phil has been Managing Director of Wired Sussex. They're a Brighton-based membership organisation for freelancers operating in the digital, media and tech sectors in Sussex, and they manage the FuseBox in Brighton. They support their members in their quest to deliver innovation, creativity and growth. Phil is going to talk with us on how we can engage further with the FuseBox and Wired Sussex and in turn develop Brighton's tech scene to compete on a world stage?
Thank you very much, Steve. It's funny, isn't it? I think technology is going to be our saviour, but in the short term, it's a pain in the arse, isn't it? Particularly remote technology like this. Exactly. I'm going to talk to you a bit more about how you might be able to get involved with the work that we do to support innovation and growth in Brighton. But first of all, I'm just going to remind people, if they don't know already, a little bit about what Wired Sussex does. So, as Steve said, we support the digital media and tech sector in Brighton and beyond, actually the whole of Sussex. We're fully independent, which means that we don't survive without our members' support. That's how we can continue to deliver support to businesses, digital media and tech businesses in Brighton. A membership, we purposely keep the entry to membership very low, £72 a year, so that you can afford to become part of this community. That's £1.50 a week. That's less than a cup of coffee. So it's affordable to any business and any freelancer in Brighton. Okay, that's the sell bit. So if you are a member, we do a lot of stuff to help you access expertise, to help you access investment, to help you find and retain talent. And we speak on your behalf. Most recently, we've had, during this COVID period, this challenging pandemic period, the lockdown, we've engaged with ministers, senior civil servants and national and local government, and been pushing the case for support for freelancers, pushing the case for better loan facilities for businesses, and pushing the case to support shared workspaces, which we know is a crucial part of the ecosystem. We also help businesses in this area innovate, and we do that primarily through the FuseBox. We launched the FuseBox in 2013 in order to help small and mid-sized businesses to innovate, because we recognize, you know, I've been, as Steve said, I've been working for Wired Sussex for 12 years, but before that I was working in media and technology for a number of years. Particularly in the music industry, technology in the music industry. And I know that innovation is very, very tough. It's very tough, particularly if you're a small business. So the FuseBox is there to support innovation. It's there to provide the resources, the capacity, the connections, and the equipment that you need in order to innovate. It's got a particular focus on what we call emerging technologies. That means immersive technologies, interactive technologies, connectivity, and intelligence, or intelligent data. It's a collaborative R&D space, so we've kind of recognized that innovation is a contact sport, and if we can get businesses working together, they can solve some of the problems which benefit them all. And we've seen a number of very successful Brighton businesses come out of collaborating with other businesses and recognize that they can scale much more quickly by working together. And as I said, we provide innovators with access to space, facilities, opportunities, and expertise. We have a range of different businesses who use the FuseBox, from large corporates who second individuals to the FuseBox to try and understand some of these new technologies and how they might impact on their business, but also startups and existing businesses. We host Brighton Immersive Lab, which is a state-of-the-art lab with VR equipment, AR equipment, and haptic equipment. So all kinds of immersive equipment. And that's been particularly interesting to e-learning companies in Brighton who are looking at new ways to disseminate learning processes using this technology, but also a number of the games companies in Brighton have engaged with us because it's a new way of connecting consumers to gaming opportunities. But now we know that under COVID, actually there's going to be even more demand for ways of engaging in an effective way remotely. And so we're beginning to get a lot of interest from a wide variety of companies in how VR may help them to succeed, grow and connect more effectively with their audiences, their clients and with their teams. And as Dritan talked about, 5G Brighton itself as well is a core part of what we do. I think it was 2015 when Wired Sussex, we first recognised that 5G could be a game changer for businesses, and started to discuss with, first of all, Coast Capital and then later with the Digital Catapult about creating the opportunity for businesses to access 5G technology in advance of its rollout across the country in order to innovate, in order to create new products and services which benefit from 5G. And we knew that there were 5G testbeds around the country based in universities or based in large corporates, particularly the network providers like BT and O2. But there was no testbed which enabled small businesses to engage, small and mid-sized businesses to engage with 5G. So that's what we set as our goal and our task for our testbed. We would be the first, and we were the first, testbed in the country which was available and open to small and mid-sized businesses. Because small and mid-sized businesses are just as capable of coming up with great ideas which benefit from 5G as anyone else. Often they're in supply chains with large corporates who are asking them to raise their game in terms of connectivity. And so we wanted to provide somewhere that enabled that to happen. And I think in a way that's almost like a kind of summary of how Wired Sussex looks to support businesses, our member businesses in Brighton, because there isn't a single business, apart from maybe American Express, who could afford to build their own 5G testbed in Brighton. But by working with great partners like the Digital Catapult, we've been able to create something which now lots and lots of businesses can access. And Dritan talked about some of those businesses in his slide, and only yesterday we had a series of calls with 5 businesses that we're currently working to support around 5G technology. All of those, in fact, are small businesses, and all of them are very similar to the types of businesses probably that you have and you run or you work for. So there's a real opportunity, I think, for small business innovation via this testbed, a real opportunity. And there were some great ideas that we've been able to support and were developing even with the challenges of COVID, and we learnt about yesterday. And a lot of that, this is a bit like a kind of mutual appreciation society, but a lot of that is down to the skills and the expertise that the Digital Catapult have been able to bring to bear on this. They've got fantastic 5G technology. Dritan's got a great technology team, and they're really used to working with small businesses who are trying to develop technology, but also trying to get that technology to become commercially successful. So that, I think, is the opportunity. I want to finish by saying, as Dritan said, we've just, as a group, just come into a strategic arrangement with the Brighton Dome. And that's because we recognise that 5G will be really, really important in the arts, the creative industries, and in performance. And we want this city to lead the way in terms of emerging technology 5G connectivity and the creative industries. I think I've got a video which shows some of the early work that we've done with Brighton Dome and the Digital Catapult, just to finish. By all means, contact the Digital Catapult direct, but if you do want to find out more about the services that we can offer via the 5G Testbed, via the Immersive Lab, or via the FuseBox Innovation Hub more generally, please do get in contact. We are always excited by businesses that are excited about innovating. That's what we kind of live for, really.
We're here in this iconic venue of Brighton Dome, celebrating cohorts from our 5G Testbed Accelerator program.
Brighton is famous for its creative community, so setting the 5G testbed here has given us a very specific angle to the kinds of ideas that are being explored. So we're really excited to be able to show off some of those today.
There is this sort of melting pot, if you like, of all of these different creative types. They all talk to each other, they all communicate, and they bounce off each other, and 5G is going to be an incredible enabler of these conversations and these ideas to go even further.
5G in Brighton is going to enable a lot more collaborative, narrative, immersive experiences. We can put on shows at multiple venues simultaneously and have them all working together.
Being in the Brighton Dome is an amazing feeling. It was super interesting to see a building like that being upgraded with technology and being able to provide a better quality of network to the users.
It's an incredible feeling to be here and also running on real 5G equipment. We've been showing really low latency results today, 10 to 15 milliseconds latency.
5G technology is not going only to impact the audience experience. We can expect a whole collaborative online process that has never been seen before.
We're always looking for ways in which we can push boundaries, think of new ideas, almost operate outside the rules. And we believe that 5G gives us the opportunity to do that and do that in really new and exciting ways.
It's amazing to see how fast the companies involved in our cohorts grow. In a few months' time that we've been working with them here, we've seen so many opportunities for new contracts, for investment, for growth into new areas, for product development. The addition of 5G to the startup community here in Brighton is really going to take growth for local businesses to the next level.
That's great. Thank you very much, Phil. Yeah, look, none of us can fault the effort that Wide Sussex have made over the years. Absolutely incredible organisation, and brilliant to see the work is still ongoing with such a level of pace and effort. We haven't got as much time as we thought we would. A lot of it is due to sort of technical issues our end. As I said, we're learning as we go. Can have a question for each speaker first, though. I'm going to start with Dritan. The question I'd like to put to you is, what can we do right now within our businesses, and what can we think through to ready ourselves for 5G rollouts?
It's a great question. So it depends on the nature of your particular business. So I will give you some examples, just to know that this is not a ready-made answer. So if you are a company that you are established, you are running a warehouse, you are running a logistics operation, you are providing logistics services to Gatwick, or you are doing something similar to that, then you definitely have a digital solution that underpins your operations. That digital solution will be affected by the way that the infrastructure provides the necessary services to you. You might not be exposed to that because you have it through a third party or you use it directly. So that is an element where you are in what Claire showed as the 4 stages in the kind of explore phase of engaging with the 5G. In terms of the readiness of it, at the moment, the primary thing that we are seeing in the UK and all over the world, it is enhanced mobile broadband. Higher capacity, higher data rates, higher quality, and eventually, through a better coverage, leveraging 4G as well, the ability for you to effectively explore that within the existing realm. The 2 additional features that Claire mentioned, which is the ultra low latency. That is coming. The standard is being defined now. It was supposed to be in June. COVID, now the new excuse. It's coming in October. But the commercial rollout will be next year. That will unlock a completely different thing. So you need to speak to people like Claire, and maybe Claire, you might want to chip in, because we have a very specific program from people that know absolutely nothing to people that progressively go to the level of being able to exploit very specifically 5G features. So our mission is, how do we move the conversation from what 5G can do for the global industry to what 5G can do for you specifically? And that is a conversation that we need to have, and also point to a lot of other people that can do that. Claire, maybe you can help a bit more in that?
So yeah, just to, in that slide that was a bit blurry, but this is what we do, Digital Catapult. So we accompany you in that journey. And I'm not sure this question comes from where you are in this journey, but the first step is absolutely essentially educate yourself, understand the tech. There's more and more information out there. You can absolutely come to us. We're running regular webinars, and we have also white paper. We've got one in manufacturing, for the manufacturing sector. The second step is start to probably see how you can translate that knowledge into your specific business challenges. So I don't know if you're a startup or a potential end user, but again, we can help there. And the last step, which is the one where we absolutely excel, is the one, the trialing, the prototyping. As Dritan was saying, the Brighton Testbed is, honestly, apart from the mobile network operator in this country, is the best in the country. So if you're at that stage where you want to experiment and check if what you had in mind makes sense, really that testbed is the best place. And not only it's a technical space, but we provide with it all the technical experts. So it doesn't come there, off you go, here's the key. You have all that onboarding and all journey. We help you really understand the tech. So that's what we offer, that whole, and I would say it seems far away, but things are moving so fast that the sooner you start that journey, the better, honestly.
Fantastic, thank you. Yeah, it's a really good point, and probably one that I should have checked a little bit more in the Q&A in terms of where that question came from and then the sort of nature of that person's business. Yeah, it's obviously business dependent. Can I ask a question to Dritan, if that's okay? Dritan, do we see 5G replacing Wi-Fi in the future?
No. The answer is very direct and very no. It's if you do a bit of a search on the internet, you'll find elements of a kind of a discussion that puts these two technologies head to head. They are not head to head technologies. They leverage each other, as many people in the business know, not just in the telecommunications sector, but more broadly. There is a lot of traffic that the mobile network operators already offload on the Wi-Fi infrastructure. At the same time, Wi-Fi does not provide certain of the services that the 5G infrastructure provides. It was not designed for that purpose. So the typical things that you find in the cellular technology, not just in 5G, it is security of access in the network, the management of mobility. We have taken it for granted, and we are only reminded of how important that is when we move between two Wi-Fi access points belonging to the same organization and being on a call, and the call then is interrupted because it is not handled very, very well. There are changes in the same way that the 5G, the cellular technology is changing. Wi-Fi is also changing. So I'm sure you are familiar or aware that Wi-Fi 6 is coming, where improvements are being made from a technical perspective on increasing the guarantee of service. But again, these are technologies that will exist side by side. They are not fighting with one another independently of the market positioning. So just to give some numbers, the cellular contribution to the GDP in the world is about $4.3 trillion a year. the equivalent, the same figure by the World Economic Forum for Wi-Fi related technologies, from chipsets to people that use it and sell it, but also people that get benefit from it, is about 2 billion. 2 trillion, sorry, both of them 2 trillion. So both of them are very significant. They are not going to disappear. What we are seeing with 5G, and it will take another 8 to 10 years, is a convergence, where we see a better coordination between different wireless interfaces, because as end users, I don't care which way I access my services or which way I offer my services. I care what the quality of my services is in terms of reliability, latency, availability, and other elements of quality relevant to the application. So that would be my answer to that.
Okay, thank you. I've got one more question here for Phil, if Phil is still with us. Phil, if I'm a business looking to approach you and understand if 5G is one that we can kind of use within our business, do you have any kind of set criteria you go by to kind of assess if we're ready as such for 5G?
You mean as a company looking to get involved in a 5G program?
Exactly.
Yeah. So we, with the Digital Catapult, we run the 5G program in a series of what we call cohorts, which is about 5 to 7 businesses at a time. And we've always got one of those cohorts open for applications at any one time. Sometimes those cohorts are themed around particular areas. Sometimes they're just open. If you want a conversation with me about whether you're ready for that or not, then I'm happy to do that. Happy to do that virtually at the moment, and in the future, happy to do that physically over a cup of coffee. You need to think about some of the things. I guess you need to think about some of the things that Dritan and Claire were talking about in terms of the unique value propositions that 5G provides, and think about if you've got a product or service which could be significantly enhanced by that, or you've got an idea for a new product or service which kind of depends on low latency, speed, stability, and those other things. So that's effectively how we kind of come to a call about whether you're ready, whether you're in an innovation frame of mind, and the innovation that you're looking at will benefit significantly from 5G. But I understand that those are sometimes things that it's difficult for people to get their heads around. So that's why we have an open door policy in terms of having discussions with them. And if they aren't questions that I can answer because of the technical complexity, I can always bring one of Dritan's team of technologists into a call as well, and they can engage as well. So we're very, very keen to encourage applications to our testbed. And that's the thing that I stress more than anything else.
Okay, thank you. Brilliant. Dritan has just made a point here about the cohort application now being open. Dritan, do you want to talk us through a little bit about that? I know Phil's covered off a little as well, but yeah, I think there's quite a few that would be quite keen to hear about that.
Just to say that we currently have an application window open, both good news and bad news. Good news is open. Bad news is closes on the 1st of July, and we have provided the link to Steve, and maybe we can send it out to people. But if you do a search for Digital Catapult 5G Testbed Acceleration Program, the call was open on the 20th of May, and the application window closes on the 1st of July. And by all means, please reach out to Phil, and let's have a conversation.
Great, thank you. We've just shared that link now with everyone. Right, we're going to have to look to wrap things up now. Dritan, thank you. Claire, thank you. Phil, thank you too. Just before I let you leave, this does mark the end of our 5G discussion. Look, guys, I hope you all found that useful. There's so many questions we couldn't get round to answering. I will ensure everyone gets a response from this. Now, before you go, please wait. Just want to make a few announcements. Many of you will know that our mission at Silicon Brighton is to drive tech growth in our city. And we address that not just by hosting tech events and nurturing an engaged tech community, but also promoting other groups in the region. Now, they've all got agendas that are well aligned to ours, and that's been an inherent belief that Brighton has so much more potential than it currently realises. On that note, I've got a handful of announcements to make about up and coming events to promote for some great organisations in the region, running tracks and initiatives to support you on your business and digital journeys. First up, we have Barclays Eagle Lab, based on London Road, still very much open for business during this time, albeit virtually, running a curated events programme and mentoring and a number of mentoring sessions. They have a couple of top online events coming up showcasing companies making tech leaps forward. Their next is actually straight after this with TL Tech, who use smart home technology to help transform lives for the vulnerable and their families and carers. And next month they have Brighton-based Body Rocket, who built the world's first on-bike device capable of offering precise wind tunnel measurements out on the road where cyclists actually ride. It's a great story, and they recently raised 300% of their Crowdcube investment target, so there'll be a lot to learn from them for sure. Next, driven by Simon Downs from Brighton-based Holiday Taxis and Luke Thompson from Hayes Digital, Sussex PHP have an online meetup on the evening of the 1st of July. On the 3rd of July, Brighton-based automation consultants JFDI are launching their Champions of Automation initiative. This is a complete pathway towards automation excellence for our senior management viewers. If you're keen to explore how automation can work for your business, then absolutely don't miss this. At Silicon Brighton, a big part of our agenda is putting local tech companies in front of the tech community, and we'll be doing just that 3 weeks today, showcasing Brighton's top 3 immersive tech success stories. Together with Future Visual, MTech and Make Real, who we talked about a little bit today, we're going to be exploring the VR and AR space. In fact, it couldn't be a more fitting next event given the focus we provided today on the 5G tech that will further enable this space to grow. Many see VR and AR as something for the future. You wait until you see what these guys are doing right now. It will blow your mind. And we will learn stacks from today and make sure it all runs a lot smoother. And on the 29th of July, Brighton Data Forum have their next meetup. Oscar always pulls off some really decent, intelligent and inclusive events. If you have any interest in the data space, please attend. I certainly never miss one. Earlier that day, that's on the, I think it's the 29th. Yeah, earlier that day on the 29th, Creative Digital are running a webinar where you can hear how to access £12,000 of grant funding to develop the next generation of digital talent for your business. Next up, here at Silicon Brighton, if we feel there is a gap in the meetup space, we work tirelessly to start new groups. The first we helped kick off was Brighton R earlier in the year. They had nearly 70 attend their first meetup. We'll be pushing for a lot more in their first online event, and that's date to be confirmed in July. And to support all those in digital marketing, we have our next new meetup starting in July, Marketing Talk, and we've got some amazing speakers lined up for that. We do also work very closely with the universities. First up, Brighton University have an online open day on the 9th of July. If you're keen to find out about postgraduate study, there's also links there to find out about grant funding for this, how to access their student and alumni support, and that includes help starting your own business, and finally, information on free LinkedIn learning courses for current students and recent graduates. Again, I will share these slides after the talk so you can follow these QR codes. Next up, University of Sussex and the Sussex Innovation Centre are taking on new local businesses to join their Catalyst programme, where you can have their best recent graduates and placement students working within your business. Now we find ourselves working in this remote world. Never before has motivation and productivity been so important. It's so key as employers that we support our staff and the wonderful Brighton-based Mind Setup have a number of top workshops that you can join to understand better how to support your employees' well-being and productivity. And this naturally leads onto mental health. And Stratus Coaching have some great webinars anyone can join on the 8th and 10th of July, which are so worthwhile if you need help handling pressure, stress, and building resilience. It's not easy at the moment. I'll be the first to admit that even I've struggled in these last few months. Please do not estimate the value you need to place in your mental health. Platform 9 at Tower Point and Hove Town Hall are equally keen to support those looking to return to a more social work setting, so are now offering day passes and off-peak memberships. Again, really stunning space to work in and a supportive team and community who really look out for each other. Brighton Startup have invested a huge amount of effort in driving much needed investment into the region. If you're an ambitious business, they have a pitch day coming up where you can get in front of investors. If you visit brightonstartup.com, you can find out more and also listen to some of their podcasts. They are so well put together and provide some great insights into the minds of our most successful local business leaders. And finally, Brighton Chamber. Throughout these last 3 months, they have provided a huge variety of supportive events for their members. We certainly wouldn't be in the place we are as a business without their help. Please jump on their site and look at their events program. I would even go as far as to say that they're an essential support network if you have a business here. And they sent me through some details just before this event started of an event they have actually on the 23rd of July with Matt Hunter, who's the co-CEO of PlusX, where I'm sitting now. He's going to be interviewing Rocket Mill's Sam Garrity. They've taken Rocket Mill from a self-funded startup to one of the UK's largest independent digital marketing agencies. You can get tickets through their website. Yeah, that's certainly not to be missed. And that's us for today. Thanks again to Claire, Dritan and Phil. Thank you all for viewing, and a special thanks to Martin, who you've heard called out here a few times. He's been sitting alongside me today, ensuring this event runs smoothly. I just about struggled to make one-to-one Zoom calls work, let alone anything like this. I hope you are all as excited as we are about our digital future and believe, as we do, that Brighton will soon become a recognised world player in the tech scene, enabling an incredible future for us all to be realised. Thanks again, and I'll see you in 3 weeks when we will cover off VR and AR. Thank you.